Nuno and João are partners from the Walking Mentorship, and they bring the inside look in the life of the people they walk with. The podcast Keep Walking With Me searches for potential solutions towards the best version of ourselves. Every month, we walk together with a guest. There is a disclaimer that needs to be shared. After listening to this program, you might feel the urge to step outside and go for a long walk. But don't worry, that is absolutely normal.
Welcome to the podcast Keep Walking With Me. Today we have a very, very special guest walking and talking with us. So let's get started. In a nutshell, who is Libby DeLana?
Good morning. Well, I'm happy to tell you who I am, or if that's helpful.
Yes. Please.
Yes. So my name is Libby DeLana. I spent my career in the world of advertising as an art director, but that is my past 30 years. I would say if I were to define myself right now, I am a absolutely passionate advocate for the power of a simple morning walk and how going for a walk can transform each and every one of our lives. And if we are fortunate to be able-bodied, and I do not take that for granted, I give thanks to my able body all the time, walking is potentially available to all of us. And it doesn't have to be a big hike. It doesn't have to be a long distance. It doesn't have to be 10,000 steps. I believe that simply focusing on your day, an intention, the beautiful world in which you're walking has the potential of being incredibly transformative, not only for yourself, but I would argue for the world. I've come to believe that this may be an overstatement, but I grew up in the world of advertising, so why not? I actually think going for a walk can save the world. and what do I mean by going for a walk and save the world? I think when we step outside our doors and we step into the beautiful ecosystems that we are walking in, whether it's a completely natural world or an urban world, I think we are more attuned with the rhythms and energies of the planet. And I think that has the potential of being incredibly powerful. Not to mention the mental health and physical health benefits of going for a walk. So yes, I'm an art director, I'm a mom, I'm an aspiring pilot, I'm a cold water advocate, but really I feel as if I've stepped into a place of real love and affection for the potential of going for a walk. And that's who I am.
Well, Libby, thank you so much. And I honestly cannot agree more with every single line except maybe that cold water experience. But anyway, we'll get that later a little bit on our conversation. But I think I read somewhere, probably on your website, I guess, that walking is like your best friend, which again, I totally agree. But let's go a little bit deeper, because this morning walk seems to be something really, really special. So can you maybe describe to us a little bit how usually it happens in your life, and maybe some routines, or how you go around with it? What is this morning walk?
Yes. Oh, thank you. So I would say my practice is my best friend. It's my therapist. It's my, this is probably going too far, but my partner. So I started about 11 years ago. I've been going for a walk every single day, thoughtfully, mindfully. Needless to say, prior to those 11 years, I was walking from here to there. It was a means of transportation. So of course, every single day of my life, I have actually been walking, but it was 11 years ago that I intentionally started this practice. And I'm not sure I would have used the word practice at that point. I think I might have viewed it more as exercise or Really, the reason I started was despite the fact that life was grand. I feel very fortunate. I'm knocking on wood over here. My family was healthy. My work was nourishing and fulfilling. I had a beautiful set of friends around me. What I really woke up one morning realizing and remembering was that as a teen, or even earlier than that, the place that I was truly happiest, most grounded, most in touch with kind of my inner knowing and wisdom was when I was outdoors. And it was about 11 years ago. I started an ad agency with some wonderful, talented friends, and things were going well. But I found that in that moment of my life, I spent a lot of times on conference calls, in meetings, indoors, running errands, taking kids back and forth, which was all grand. There's no complaint. In fact, I'm very grateful for that. But I realized that there was probably a key piece of who I was that I really wasn't nourishing, that I wasn't paying attention to, that I hadn't built into my life. And so really the practice started not really as a walking practice per se, but it was a way to intentionally make sure that I built in the outdoors into my day. So I decided that for 30 days, I would get up an hour earlier. I'm an early bird to begin with, so it was outrageously early, but that's all right. I was happy to do it. Was to get up earlier and go for a walk. And the intention was to be out in the weather, to be in the rain, to be in the snow, to hear the birds, to feel the beautiful breezes on my face. And slowly what I began to realize was not only was it nourishing in terms of being outdoors, but the simple act of going for a walk, the motion, was really a key for me to unlocking a lot of things. And I've written a book called Do Walk. And one of the things I talk about in there is that adding motion to emotion is for me how I really understood what I was feeling. So when I say it's my best therapist, I spent a lot of time up in my head, right, thinking about things. But when I started to walk, what I realized was that simple motion, that beautiful back and forth, the gentleness of placing my feet on the earth began to help me see and understand really what was truly happening for me. So I got up every morning, I went for a walk for 30 days, and then I never looked back. I remember thinking, well, this is as important as eating well or brushing my teeth. This is a non-negotiable for me. And sometimes the walks are an hour, sometimes the walks are 4 hours, sometimes the walks are all day long. But, and sometimes when I'm sick, they're literally around the block, but they are intentional. I start the walk with basically what feels like a hug and a gratitude for being able to do it. And, here I am, 11 years later.
That's wonderful.
Well, let me tell you, Libby, that because when we started discussed about this podcast, I was looking a little bit into this routine, and actually, as you can imagine, we walk quite a lot, me and João, in our job. But still, I realized the power of just setting this very simple goal of just going for a walk every day in a mindful way. And what I can tell you is that it's been having an amazing impact in my life. And it's certainly not about just the walking, because that I was doing before, but usually with other purposes. So I really think there is something here to be learned. But you were mentioning your book, and I love the title, Do Walk, Navigate Earth, Mind and Body. And I really think it's a beautiful approach to this whole idea. But I think you mentioned somewhere that you started walking, and that somehow you approached this in your answer. You started walking as a way to look for purpose. You somehow were missing purpose in your life. Do you think we have a pandemic of lack of purpose in our world these days?
Oh, what an interesting question. Let me
I think Nunu started with the curveball questions very early. Usually it's on our third segment that we do unfair questions, but that's great. Nunu is
Sorry,
inspired today.
No, I absolutely love it.
couldn't-
I'm just pausing to think about your question such
Of
that
course.
I answer it with a splash of integrity, quite honestly. So here's what's coming up for me. I'm not sure that we are have an epidemic of lack of purpose. I think each one of us probably embedded in our beings, in our spirit, in our I think I feel as if we each have purpose, and that perhaps our time on this planet is meant to begin to uncover and trust and honor what that is. I'm not sure. I don't think purpose is an external thing that we go looking for. I think it's probably an internal truth that really the goal is to uncover it. And it's taken me 60 years, I mean, or 50, 50 years to uncover maybe what my purpose was. I think probably I knew it when I was 13 and I was in the Adirondack Mountains hiking around, and then I forgot it. And I listened to the external voices of, this is what I sort of don't like this word successful, but this is what people do. You go get a job, you do this, and I forgot, or I buried, or I turned the volume down on what my internal knowing was, which was that being outdoors and going for a walk every single day made me crazy, wildly happy. And I forgot that. And that's why I started this practice. And so I would say I probably knew that purpose when I was younger, then went on to forget it because I listened to the voices of the cultural norms, and then finally found it again. And so to your question, I'm not sure that we have an epidemic of not knowing what each of our purpose is. I think probably we have an epidemic is that we haven't turned up the volume internally or done the internal work to understand what each of ours is. The answer, again, the answer isn't outside of us. And so until we get quiet, until we spend time with our own understanding and knowing, I don't think we can. The world's so noisy. How do we possibly know what our purpose is until we get quiet? And that's the power of going for a walk, is the silence, the quiet, the opportunity to actually touch in with what we intrinsically already know. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
I love your answer, Libby.
Yeah, perfect. Actually, you were answering there. I was thinking you need to listen, because that's basically, and we forget to listen to ourselves. So we are so overwhelmed with all the noise that we just disconnect from ourselves. And actually going for a walk and having like this disciplined routine is something, and it's not a routine in the sense that it becomes senseless or mindless. It's on the contrary. It's on the sense that we need to give ourselves time on a regular daily basis. Otherwise we get disconnected. But talking about listen, I would suggest that now would be the perfect moment to listen to your first music. Can you tell us what would that be?
I wrote them down. I should look at my notes here. One song that I am listening to on repeat right now is a piece of music by a woman named Gordy, Gordi, and the song is Extraordinary Life. I hope that's what I wrote to you. I actually should look at my notes.
Yes, you did. You did.
Yes, it is. You're right.
Yeah, and I think what I love about this song not only is, I don't know, her voice for me is very captivating, but it is, to me, in a way, this anthem to how fortunate, how in many ways, how privileged we are to be on this planet at this moment. And to me, that is, excuse my language, I hope you're allowed swearing on this, that's fucking extraordinary. I mean, that we're here and that we're, so that song is right now for me the thing that sort of touches into what I'm feeling.
All right, let's listen to it.
Yes, I think it connects perfectly to your previous answer. So let's listen to Gordy.
Your voice, it came to me the clearest I had heard. Those many nights where I lay hanging from your every word. And in my bloodstream you did multiply and then walk down an avenue and take me to the end. And it's like you're in my chest, it's like you're in my lungs. Took something ordinary, set it for a run. The way I need you now is more than to survive. I wanna give you an extraordinary life. A divergence underneath toward directions that took gravity away from me. Blind and the blinder breathed you in until the dawn. I'll tell you now, I won't be back before I'm gone. It's like you're in my chest, it's like you're in my lungs. Took something ordinary, set it for a run. The way I need you now is more than to survive. I wanna give you an extraordinary life. And when you look at me, the weight of how I felt weighs heavy on me. Yeah, I will hold you closer than you have been held. And I will tell you then and now there's no one else. And when you look at me, the weight of how I felt weighs heavy on me. And it's like you're in my breath, it's like you're in my lungs. Took something ordinary, set it for a run. The way I need you now is more than to survive. I wanna give you an extraordinary life.
Well, thank you, Libby, for this song, which I guess for many listeners will be a discovery, which is always amazing and makes our life even more extraordinary. So moving forward, and as you noticed probably by now, we are really curious people. And we'd like to ask you, how does fly fishing, T-snob, and free-range parents, fits into all of this? How does it work?
Yeah. What was the second thing you said? I heard fly fishing and then free-range parenting. What was the second item?
I think I mentioned T-snob.
Oh, tea snob. Yeah, well, there you have it. I mean, life's too short to drink bad tea as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'll do it and I'll do it in a pinch, but that's part of having an extraordinary life, is knowing your boundaries. My boundary is no bad tea. So fly fishing, yes. Oh my gosh, my other love affair. Well, so I was introduced by a really powerful, wonderful, kind, dear friend, Courtney Morgan, and she and I are adventure buddies. And it was probably, I don't know, was it a decade ago, perhaps? She sort of on a beautiful whim called out of the blue and said, "Hey, do you want to go fly fishing in Oregon for steelhead?" And I had never been fly fishing, but I will say, I don't know, maybe this is too big a disconnect, but as an art director, as someone who loves the visual world and who loves the outdoors, there is hardly anything more elegant, as far as I'm concerned, than someone standing on the river's edge or in the middle of a river with a beautiful casting loop. So I, needless to say, have been always attracted to it visually. And so I said yes, and off we went, fly fishing in Oregon for steelhead with a really incredible woman, Kate Taylor. She's a really beautiful guide. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing, but like you, with a curious mind and reverence for a beginner's mind, which is, I don't think it's ever too late to learn anything. In fact, I think that's what keeps us youthful and interested and curious in life. And so A, I loved my dear friend. B, I loved the aesthetic and the idea of learning something new. So off we went. And, you know, it's related to walking in that, you know, much of fly fishing is hiking into little beautiful pockets of backcountry to find, you know, beautiful water. And so there, you know, and there's also a lot that's similar in its mindfulness. So the sort of repetition of step by step by step is very similar to casting a line or learning how to cast a line. So I think I will always be a beginner in fly fishing. I love it so much. I wish I'd started when I was 10, because there's so much to learn, just the biology, the geography. It is an incredible teacher for the outdoors. You know, all the fish species, what cycles they're in. So she and I have gone off to Alaska. We've fished in Montana. It is something that I would like to begin. I am humbled by it in terms of how much there is to learn. And so that's how that's connected. Tea, I hope it's very obvious that when I come home from a walk, that the first thing I do is make a beautiful cup of tea, primarily chai.
Likewise.
So tea for me actually is actually really related to my walking practice. I don't usually have a cup of tea before I go out, but I am trying to learn more from a beautiful teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, about this sort of practice of mindfulness. He actually talks about going for the walk. A mindful walk is a very tender practice, but it's the same for making a cup of tea, right? How can making a cup of tea become a mindful practice? And you know, adding breath as the water boils, and then the joy of pouring the hot water over the tea bag. So I am a tea snob. Yes, life's too short to drink bad tea. And then free range parenting. I have very fortunate to have two very tall, I'm 6 feet, so they're very tall. 6 feet, smart, kind, feminist, thoughtful sons. And as we were raising them, we sort of adopted this sort of framework of free range parenting, which was, I think, really more of a mindful practice of, in a way, hands off. Let let children, let people, let your friends do their thing. And how can we be supportive in that rather than try and guide? So instead of building the path for them, watch their path and see how we can support. So I guess it's all related, a thread of walking somewhere in there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I love the idea of free-range parenting. I'm really happy that that we asked that question, because your answer is just perfect. I totally agree. And I mean, in our work of mentoring, it's always about walking with someone else. It's not about guiding or showing the way, because we all have our own ways, and we all know inside which way we should go. So,
well, it really looks back. Yeah, well, it loops back to your previous question about purpose. I can imagine you as mentors, who I'm sure are very skilled at it, is to not provide a solution to somebody's purpose. You don't have the answer for them, but what you can do,
for sure.
what you can do, as you just said so beautifully, is walk in support. You know, the way I love to visualize that moment of both parenting and perhaps walking with a friend or mentoring is to walk shoulder to shoulder, and, you know, metaphorically with your hand on their back is to me, I mean, it's one of the most loving things we can do. You're not standing in front of somebody telling them, you're side by side, sharing the space, sharing the path, walking together, step by step together. Nobody's in front of anybody. There's no hierarchy. It is, in fact, the most, I don't know, I think going for a walk is the most, I'm going way too far on this, but what the heck? I think it's the sexiest thing one can do. Maybe not the sexiest thing, but a sexy thing is to go for a walk with somebody, because it's so loving and so in alignment, and to be shoulder to shoulder with someone you care about, listening or sharing is, gosh, what a gift. So I probably went too far there, but why not?
No, actually, Libby, not at all. Not at all. And I just wanted to tell you that you were talking, and I was picturing, actually, I cannot say for Nuno, but I can almost say also for Nuno, one of our favorite programs of all the programs that we've done over the years, and there are so many, I mean, dozens, more than 1,000 people, but there's one program that it's a very special place on us, which is parents and kids. So we actually, once a year, we take either mother or father and one of the kids, so there is no competition for attention. And every time we've done this program, Nuno and I, we took one of our kids. And I have to tell you that this is probably, I was listening to your description of actually free-range parenting and this idea of walking shoulder to shoulder. Yes, definitely, all the time. But sometimes, as a mother or father that really loves your loved ones, sometimes you need to go a bit behind and put your hands, a little support, which feels very good, I guess, to both. And thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. I love that you do that program. Thank you for doing it. I'm sure it's so meaningful for all those individuals. I mean, what a gift.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those words. But I would like to chill down a little the conversation. Sorry, but I'm really very curious about your interest in cold water and cold exposure, I guess. I personally have done nothing similar to what you do, but I do enjoy the feeling of going for cold water. But you do something a little bit more extreme. So can you share with us a little bit how this came into your life, and what is it that drives you to go into literally freezing water?
I mean, it's such a fair question. I mean, I think it would be really fair for anybody to say, you're nuts. What are you doing?
I didn't say that. No.
No, but it would be fair. Plenty have, and they're not wrong, probably. So here's what I've come to learn. So to be perfectly honest, it started a little bit on a whim at sort of the start of the pandemic. One of my sons was home after graduating from college. Where I live, just north of Boston, is right on the Atlantic Ocean. And I think we can all say that during lockdown, we were all looking for ways to feel, I don't know, lit up, alive. And so we decided, we hopped in the car and we went down to the beach, and people have undoubtedly heard of polar plunges that happen on New Year's. Well, we, in sort of that spirit, thought, let's just run into the ocean. It wasn't the dead of winter, but it was really late fall. The ocean was very cold. And so we ran in and we ran out. It was it was not mindful at all. It was thrilling, interesting, and challenging. It was fun to do together. We laughed like crazy. Needless to say, if anybody's done this, when you get out, your body feels pretty great. The way I describe it is sort of like all the light switches are turned on. We can get into the science in a second, but really what happens is your body is flooded with dopamine, which is a really beautiful chemical that makes you feel great, but it also is the motivation chemical. It also is the clear thinking chemical in your body. And so I have to say, on those first few times we did it, it was really just a thrill, and it was kind of a tool to, in many ways, entertain ourselves. And slowly what began to happen was I realized that I wanted to continue with this practice. And what I've come to realize really was it became a way for me to take one of the stories that I held very dear and very close about myself, and was actually a limiting belief, which was that if you asked anybody 3 or 4 years ago, one of the things they probably would have said about me was, oh gosh, Libby hates the cold. Wherever she is, she has her puffy coat. She hates the cold. Even in the office, she's wearing her puffy coat in the middle of July. And they would be right. And that story came from, and again, it was part of the way I identified myself. And when I would always say that out loud. And what I became curious about was, is it possible to take a belief that we have about ourselves and flip it on its head? I began to wonder, can I change that belief that I hate the cold? And where that belief came from was, again, when I was in the backcountry, I was a teenager, we were out hiking. I had an experience where I got way too cold and I couldn't get warm. And it was sort of the middle of the night, and I was too polite to say to the rest of my hiking buddies, hey, I'm too cold. Can I get in the sleeping bag with you? Can you help me light a fire? I just kept quiet, and all night long really was way too cold, and it was very threatening and very uncomfortable and scary. So from that experience, I had this narrative, well, I'm the person who hates the cold. So to make a long story short, what I've really held dear is that we have these limiting beliefs about ourselves. We have stories and narratives that limit the possibility of what we can do in this world. And maybe that's part of purpose too. So I began this practice of really thoughtfully entering the cold water. And I just started to learn more and more, and did all this research on Wim Hof, which maybe you've heard about. And now I have a cold water practice and a tank at home, which is covered in ice. And I get in the cold water probably 3, 4, 5 times a week, and have an incredible community of women at home who also do the same thing. I'm currently in California. Before I left, we got in our local river and it was 24 degrees. And one could say, well, wasn't it frozen? Well, yes, there was ice floating in the river, but because it's a river, it was moving. So you're right, it gets kind of extreme. It's kind of thrilling. I have an incredible community to do it. And there's all sorts of physical benefits, which I won't go into now. But what I have learned is that those little sneaky stories that we tell ourselves that actually limit how we move through the world we do have the opportunity to shift them should we try. It's hard work, scary. It is not easy. And I've applied this to other areas of my life. So it is a practice of internal inquiry, really.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but that's so interesting because, I mean, when one does this internal inquiry, usually we find reasons to do certain things that usually we don't do. So what I mean is that, I mean, we notice obviously that you are involved in several causes. I mean, namely I guess the period fighting menstrual stigma, and also the Jeanne Geiger Crisis Center, which is engaging, communities to end domestic violence. I really wonder what drives you to be an activist.
Oh, I guess the quick answer is, again, I guess it's sort of subtle purpose. It's not overt. I suppose my purpose is the walking, but I think I have come to really realize how fortunate and how much privilege and opportunity I have in this world. And it is in many ways dumb luck. And so I have the energy and feel as if the opportunity and maybe even the responsibility lies with each of us who have so much, period, to share that and to do what we can with our short time on this planet to leave it better than we found it. I mean, one of the tenets of camping, perhaps it's more I would say American centric, but is a concept of leave no trace. So wherever you go, if you're out camping or if you're out, is to leave no trace of where you've been. And so I guess I sort of have that feeling about my time on the planet. Not only do I need to leave no trace, but I need to try and leave it better than I found it. And I have been granted so much. The least I can do is offer some energy, some wisdom, a welcoming hand to organizations that are close and dear to me. I guess I feel it's a responsibility. So.
Indeed. Well, thank you for your answer. And actually, keeping on that note, maybe it's a good time for you to offer some energy, some wisdom through a song. Maybe you want to share with us what's your second pick.
Oh, I don't remember. Tell me, what did I put? I should open up my notes.
No worries.
No,
we can
tell you.
Maybe,
so
yeah. What do you think, Nuno? Fleetwood Mac, maybe?
Yeah,
everywhere,
but Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, sure. Yes, yes. Let's plop that in there. I love that song.
So thank you so much for listening to Fleetwood Mac. It never gets old, right? It's always a pleasure. So I wanted to ask you something very, very simple, maybe, but I would like to know the why. Do you have a favorite hiking route, a particular hiking route you prefer? And if you do, if you can tell us why you prefer that route.
A hiking route, or did you say group?
No, route.
Oh, route.
Like a trail, yeah.
Yeah, oh gosh, what a great question. I will say that I guess I don't have a favorite, because I do really, I don't know, it must be something about my spirit. I love going on new trails. So I'm, as I said, currently in San Francisco, and I've been doing a lot of hiking up on Mount Tamalpais, which is in Marin, and just exploring some new trails. Boy, is it beautiful. There's a trail called the Dipsy, which goes down to the Pacific Ocean, really beautiful. About a month or so ago, a group of us, all women, went up into the White Mountains in New Hampshire and hiked with our crampons and our ice axes, because it was December. through, and that was absolutely beautiful. Oh my goodness. And despite having said that I love to explore new trails, there is a route. It's not really a trail. There's a route that I take when I'm at home. And I probably, excuse me, have done that trail, I don't know, a couple times a week. And so, you know, over the course of 11 years, it's hundreds of times. So it has a familiarity and a beauty in its familiarity to me. It's so familiar that it becomes meditative. Do you know what I mean? I know each bend in the road. I honestly, in some ways, feel like I know where the coyotes are. I know where the barred owl sits. I know when the snowy owls appear, and that's out on Plum Island in Massachusetts. And it's a roadway through a preserve, and I've done that walk. It's probably about 8 miles. I have done it so much that there are times when I really feel like I need to get grounded, that there's one stretch where I close my eyes and I walk with my eyes closed for 10, 20, 30 steps, because I know it so well. And talk about learning to trust your other senses, learning to listen more deeply. So I don't do that often, but that path is probably the one I've walked the most, and have I don't know, it sort of feels like a family member. It's like a hug every time I walk that path. It's
that sounds familiar.
Familiar and loving, and you know, I know where the headwind shows up. And yeah, so I think it's probably the Plum Island Preserve that is my most walked path.
Wow. Well, thank you, Libby, for sharing. It's actually, it's a good introduction for our next question, because even knowing that you've done a certain path many, many times, you actually can have the possibility to make the decision to walk it differently, no matter what is probably, you know, the weather or the temperature on that day. And when we think about our lives in general, and think about the constraints that can happen, obviously, it will happen to each one of us, either because of the place we were born, or our family, or work, or, I mean, whatever got on the way in our path. It seems that we can always kind of, we can choose to make something good and positive out of our lives, and, or let's call it a masterpiece, our masterpiece. Does this make sense to you? And if so, how do you think this can unfold in everyone's lives?
Yeah, if I understand your question, I think what I hear you saying is even even on a repetitive path, even on a path that we do over and over and becomes familiar and at times maybe even annoying and has a headwind, and because of its repetition, maybe there isn't the sparkle and interest because it's so familiar. And one could say there's probably a component of that that enters into our life. There's pattern, and every single day isn't filled with joy and excitement. So how do we take the lessons of the path, which is well worn and well understood, and again, maybe even annoying and challenging? How do we make it fresh? How do we still learn the lessons? How do we so for me on that path, there more often than not, I get out about 4 miles, I turn around, and the headwind is on my way home. There have definitely been times when it's been so stormy and windy, the rain is dripping off the end of my ears, down into my jacket, onto my shoulders, down the back of my neck, and the wind is blowing so strongly that, the hood that I have on practically blows off. And it's in those days where it's really easy to get frustrated and think, why didn't I walk the other fucking path? Why do I put myself in this position? Why? This is so uncomfortable. And the rain, my socks are soaking such that when I get home, I can literally pour the water out of my shoes. But I've come to know that over the course of time and those kinds of experiences, it's not unlike getting into the cold water. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. It's in those moments actually that the opportunity to really listen and to learn the most presents itself, I think. So when I get into the cold water, sometimes it's so cold, it's almost impossible to stay present. Your mind goes elsewhere. Am I safe? This is crazy. What are you doing? The mind takes over. And it's not until I sort of come back to my breath and say to myself, sometimes I put my hand on my heart and say, sweetheart, you are safe. You chose to do this. There is, and I literally just breathe into relaxing into the water such that I think about the water giving me a hug. I'm not fighting it. I don't have my hands in front of me trying to create a barrier. It's the same with walking. And when I'm walking and it's really gnarly and nasty out, and it's really hot and familiar and there's nothing new to learn, it is actually in those moments that mindfulness presents a really great opportunity, because what happens is you have to become internal. What is your body saying? What is your mind telling you? How can you breathe such that your steps become more gentle? One of the phrases that I really love is go gently. So it's when that headwind is blowing, the water's dripping down your back, or it's when I step into the coldest of water and I'm creating this kind of clenched body, that the invitation is, okay, relax, lean into it, literally lean into it, listen. The other way. So I think there are lessons that you can only learn in that moment by being open to hearing it. So the way I sort of describe it, I don't happen to be a gamer and I don't really know this world, so forgive me if I tell this story incorrectly, but my understanding is when you're in an online gaming scenario, that as you play to a certain level, you get keys to the next level, and you get opportunities to go into new places. The way I view it is, in those moments, I'm leveling up to a place where I can only learn that message at that moment, being really uncomfortable, being really cold. And that lesson is only offered to me in that place, in that moment. It doesn't happen when everything's happy and cheerful and I'm walking along and it's beautiful. So I've come to learn that there's something to be learned here, and you only get this opportunity right now in these conditions to learn it. It's only offered to you after you've walked in the cold and the rain. There is something unique about that moment, and there's something unique about what opportunity you have to learn something. And again, I don't know if that gaming analogy is right, but the way I think of it is I'm in this ecosystem and I'm only given the keys to this lesson in that situation where it's pouring rain and uncomfortable. And so I guess I just try and relax into it and say, this doesn't last forever. The walk will be over. The rain will stop. You will be in a warm shower soon enough. You will have your beautiful cup of tea. But in this moment, get present. What's the opportunity to learn? Sometimes it's simply just go step by step. You will get there. Sometimes it's you're stronger than you think. Sometimes it's just be patient. This too shall pass. So I think in any of those moments, and especially at the moments that are challenging and hard, the world is offering you a unique opportunity to learn something that's only available at that moment. It's not available any other time. And if you want to learn it, you better be quiet and listen.
Thank you, Libby.
Usually we grow outside of our comfort zone. So it's exactly there that we can find the new keys to ourselves. And talking about going outside our comfort zone, or maybe not, I have a kind of an unfair question, but I believe I will make you a more difficult one ahead, but this one can be challenging, which is very simple. It's if you could take on any adventure today, literally any adventure, what would that be?
Oh my gosh, I have a list of 10. So let me see if I can.
Okay. Easy.
Well, let's see. I'm very, very grateful. I've just become what's called a friend, guide, ambassador for a brand called Fjallraven. They have these exquisite experiences. One is called Polar, which is up in the Arctic Circle. It's a dog's maybe it's not 10 days, maybe it's 7 days, dog sled, cold adventure. I would love to do that. I'd love to go back. I'd love to go trekking on the Annapurna circuit with my dear friend Maggie Doyne, who is the founder of an organization called BlinkNow. I invite everybody to check it out. It's spectacular. So I'd like to do the Annapurna circuit. I'd like to go back to Alaska to go fishing with Courtney and Kate. But the adventure that I have coming up is with one of my longest standing, dearest friends, Marta, and she and I have for a decade, literally a decade, said we want to go and walk in and around the beautiful country of Bhutan. And so she and I are going at the end of April to do a little walking, trekking, wandering to Bhutan. So those are the quick ones on the list.
Amazing.
I'm afraid I have really terrible, insatiable wanderlust. I just think this planet is so beautiful. I just am honored to be able to see a good bit of it.
Great.
Yeah. Well, and I guess it's time for your third music,
which I believe is "Hang On," correct? Is that right?
It's "Hold Tight" by DeLove, but you can change if you want.
Oh, no. I mean, "Hold Tight." This is a new song in my little listening repertoire. I don't know much about it. I probably should, but I think what I just really love about this song is this kind of notion of, the lyrics are "hold tight," and I think the reason that resonates for me right now is I'm 60 years old. I think I'm feeling like I'm just holding tight, not in a restrictive way, but I'm just holding tight to this idea that our time on this planet is so darn short. Boy, what an amazing opportunity and gift we've been given. So I guess that's why I've chosen this song. But I'm not. Who knows? You may ask me. I may choose some other ones if we. So
yes, it's wonderful. Let's listen to it.
I'll be here with you all night. My, I'm getting lost in your eyes. Outside, I'll be here with you all night. My, I'm getting lost in your eyes. Outside, I'll be here with you all night. I'm getting lost in your eyes. Outside, I'll be here with you all night. Getting lost in your eyes. I'll be here with you all night. Getting lost in your eyes. I'll be here with you all night. Getting lost in your eyes. I'll be here with you all night. Getting lost in your eyes.
Well, thank you, Libby, for this third song. We are kind of, approaching our destination, but there's a couple of things that we still would like to have your take on it. Actually, you've been working, by the way, in the previous life. I think I had a similar job as yours, but you've been working for many years in design and branding, and obviously you have seen the whole industry change dramatically and become very different from what used to be, 30 years ago, for instance, or even less. And my question for you is, since the industry still focus on brands, what do you think makes today a brand truly relevant?
This is going to sound terribly cliche because this word is overused in our industry, but actually, the two words I'm going to say are overused, but I think there is real truth to it, which is authentic storytelling. And I always viewed my job was as an art director in the ad communications marketing world. My job was not to, quote unquote, sell things. My job was to take the passion and learning of what resided inside a brand, a company, and simply share that passion with the external world. So I spent quite a bit of time on some really beautiful brands, including at one point Rolls-Royce and Bentley, which I feel really privileged to have worked on. And my job, I didn't feel, was to necessarily sell Rolls-Royces or Bentleys. I mean, there wasn't in many ways an esoteric product. But what I found fascinating about that company, and what I really tried, my partner and I really tried to share, was it's actually an incredibly crafted item. It's a crafted, absolutely exquisitely, beautifully built product, item, car. One quick story is we were I was driving the Bentley Turbo R. I know it, again, this is 30 years ago. I don't know how I feel about my experience now, but when you opened up the trunk, the boot, there's a beautiful piece of chrome that went around the exterior of that, of the trunk. And what I noticed was every single screw head was aligned just so. And to me, that was what was thrilling. It wasn't necessarily the car or the performance or how fast, or certainly not how expensive, which one could argue is ridiculous, but it was the craftsmanship, the attention to the detail, the love for, again, making all these screw heads be perfectly aligned with the sort of bottom edge of the trunk. And to me, that was just really beautiful for a number of reasons. Visually, it was very beautiful. I loved thinking about the individual who maybe that was a requirement, but who decided to make that an important feature that probably nobody ever saw. But I just had to respect the fact that that was part of this experience of this product. And so for me, it is unearthing what is true, what is authentic about any company, whether it's tea, whether it's whatever it might be, or cars, and sharing that passion of what resides inside an organization with the outside world. So authentic storytelling, as I said, is so cliched at this moment. Unfortunately, those words have become absolutely meaningless. But at its core, at the very inception of those words, it's true. So we want to tell stories that resonate, that matter. But again, I'm embarrassed to use those words because they're so darn overused at this moment. So,
but it makes sense. It makes absolutely sense, actually. And if you think for thousands, no, I'm just saying for thousands and years, that's how we pass the most important things in our lives through generations, through stories. So it's still valid. And I was just thinking, when you're talking about your clients, I was thinking one of the things I really enjoy while working in advertising was that sometimes clients would give us samples. And I was just wondering, did they give a sample to Libby? That would be great.
Oh, well, they did.
One of those cars.
Well, I didn't. I mean, I had it for about 2 weeks because this was a time. It's changed since the whole world has shifted, especially in advertising. But at that time, there was absolute belief that you actually had to use the product in order to actually speak with any authenticity. I'm afraid it shifted a little bit now, but yes, I did drive the Bentley Turbo R for 2 weeks through a drive-through. So,
wow. Yeah, that's really interesting, the approach you took, because this somehow you could have taken this in any direction, and I think you really grounded your answer in a very authentic way, in the most authentic meaning of authentic. But I have now a tricky question, a curveball maybe, but I would really love your answer to it. So the question goes just like this: what are we missing as humans? Are we missing anything? And you can take this anywhere you want, so you're totally free with your answer.
What are we missing with humans? Oh gosh, I guess my initial knee-jerk reaction is we're not missing anything other than the space and the opportunity to, well, let me see. Let me rethink that.
It's a curveball. It's only fair you take your time.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm gonna come at it from the walking perspective, since that's what this conversation is really about. I think I think what we're missing is the space, the opportunity to truly know who we are. I mean, it sort of is a thread through your beautiful questions. What's our purpose? My answer to, getting quiet and listening. I think we're missing the intention to create space and quiet to listen to our understanding and our knowing. I think we have gotten swept up in a life that is busy, filled with products and noise. And I think the opportunity of going for a walk is that it does provide space. It provides the opportunity for silence and quiet. It provides the opportunity to touch in with what our body and our knowing is telling us. So I guess what we're missing is going for a walk every day. How's that?
That sounds amazing.
Absolutely. Oh, Libby, it's such a wonderful talk that we always have this a kind of bittersweet taste in the end of the conversation, because we could go on and continue to learn and savor, all the wisdom that you share with us. So we have maybe one last question that it's one of our classics, because it sounds actually quite inspiring, the answers we have received. So if you had a time capsule, what message would you place inside that someone or something, either tomorrow or 1,000 years from now, would open up? What they would find inside?
Without being too cheeky, I would say go for a morning walk every single day, and be open and curious and grateful for the opportunity, the messages, the place, the people you're walking with, because there's a lot of answers there. And to loop back to what I said initially, I do think going for a walk can save the world. And I know that's advertising talk and very big, but I guess from my experience, I have learned humility. I've learned about myself. I've learned about the world. I think it is go for a mindful walk every day and be open and curious and thoughtful about what is there. And and then also always drink good tea. That's what I would put in my time capsule.
So a tea bag probably inside that time.
Without a doubt. Yes.
That's amazing. Well,
that's a first. We never had the tea bag inside the time capsule.
And maybe cozy socks. I mean, who doesn't like going for a walk with beautiful cozy socks? So
this keeps getting better.
Well, thank you, Libby.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we depart with a tremendous desire that one day we cross our paths, either on this side of the pond or the other side, on whatever day weather might give us, with sun or rain, and have the opportunity to walk shoulder to shoulder. Thank you, Libby.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe cold water.
Yes,
Sorry.
absolutely. So no, thank you both so much. It's such beautiful, thoughtful questions. I will say I've never been asked some of those things, so it was really fun to think about, and I'm going to continue to think about some of your questions. In fact, tomorrow's walk, I'm going to really take with me and tuck in my back pocket. What are we missing, I think, and some really great questions. So thank you both. And thank you for your practice of walking mentorship. I think it's, I'd like to go for a walk and be mentored by both of you at any point. So
anytime you want.
Anytime.
You'll be very welcome.
Keep Walking with Me. It is a podcast inspired by the walking mentorship experience. Step by step, we walk together towards the best version of ourselves. For more information about our mentoring programs, visit our website walkingmentorship.com.